Good morning, good evening, all. This is absolutely a pleasure for me to have you all together at this India Dialogue conversation. As you know, this is something that Richard and I have been hosting for the last couple of years, and we have had some very astounding guests. But today we have Professor Anil Gupta. If you don't know him, then I would like to say that you have been absolutely ignorant in the world of management, or at least in the world of economics and impact. Because this is one personality who I feel is possibly one of the finest thinkers on innovation across the world. Somebody who's done work at the grassroots and also has written a book on grassroots innovation. And one of the most astounding things about Professor Anil Gupta is that he's somebody who's walked across the country. And he does this course, or he's been doing this course at IIM Ahmedabad for ages, I think, wherein he makes his students walk across the country on a exploration kind of a thing, and possibly something very unique. But on that, I must also say that he's possibly a true Gandhian who believes that life has to be lived from a minimalistic perspective. And think somebody who's so accomplished. I met Professor Gupta, I think, about a decade and a half back, and he's been such an inspiration for me. I think it was and he used to run, in fact, still does, the whole Festival of Innovation with the President of India. If I'm not wrong, he started when President Pranab Mukherjee was the president. And
No, it started during Dr. Kalam's time as an exhibition award, and then the festival started during Pranab Mukherjee's time. You're right.
Yeah, so that is what he has done. So he's somebody who's created that voice of innovation within India. So whatever we talk about innovation in India today, whether you talk about patenting or innovation at the corporate level or at the grassroots levels, he's somebody who has had that influence over a period of time. Of course, as I said, he has been a professor at IIM Ahmedabad. He started this honeybee network, part of Gyan, and so many other things that he's done. So I can keep on reading about him for hours, and then we will finish this session. But he's also been honored with, this is one thing that I should share, that he's been honored with one of the highest civilian honors in India. So he's a Padam Shri awardee for his impact and work in the area of management. And I think it happened ages back. So it happened about 2004. And
Yes.
he's continued on his absolute stunning path of creating impact even after that. So he's somebody who's unstoppable. And I also say that, like he's like a guru to me. And in a true Indian sense, I would like to say, Charan Vandana sir, well, you've been such an inspiration. And in English, for people to know that I bow in front of your humble feet because you are my guru and you're my inspiration. And I learn so much from you each day of my life. But without further ado, we will get into this conversation as Richard is going to be leading this conversation for us today. So Richard, over to you. And of course, I'll have questions and I'll intervene in between as well.
Thank you very much, Amit. And Professor Gupta, thank you so much for joining us today. 35 years ago, you had an insight that innovation is not something that has to be top-down ordered by the president on down through the organization of a company, but that individual people, no matter what their economic status, are improving the world through their innovation. Tell us a little bit about how you came to that insight and just what it led to.
Yeah, it's an interesting story that while I was doing some work on knowledge of the people and their creativity, even before starting Honeybee Network, but it occurred to me one day that for all the recognition that I got at that stage, early recognition, consultancies, honor, rewards. So I asked a question as to what is the proportion of that income which has gone back to the people whose work I have written about. So I was wondering whether I'm getting recognition because I'm brilliant, or is it because the people about whom I write, they are brilliant? So if they are brilliant, then there must be a share in whatever accrues to me. So I realized that just as money lender may be exploiting in money market, a trader may be exploiting commodity market, a landlord may be exploiting land market, I was exploiting in the knowledge market. This realization for a publicly spirited intellectual that he is an exploiter is traumatic and is painful. And I had to find an answer to that. And it occurred to me, I argued with myself. I'm working on public policy. I'm trying to influence the institutions. I'm influencing the policy. But none of it convinced me that it was enough. So then, as they say, when I saw one day honeybee, it occurred to me, maybe that's what I should be doing. I should cross-pollinate the knowledge from people to people. It must be done in local language. I must not make people anonymous. So their identity should be protected. Their intellectual property rights should be protected. And whatever I work based on their knowledge should be shared back with them, which most scholars have never done. And finally, if any income accrues to me, a reasonable share of that should go back to them. So with this resolve, I started with my own resources, this network. And fortunately, a lot of people started joining it. Students, my colleagues, farmers, mechanics, artisans. And we began to notice a huge upsurge of creativity that already existed, but that we were not aware of, or the society was not aware of. The word grassroots innovation or frugal innovation or inclusive, these words were not there.
Yeah.
They did not exist. So when we started talking about these concepts, the four principles emerged, as I just repeated, I just said, that the knowledge, the bridge between formal and informal systems should be such that when exchange of knowledge takes place between formal and informal systems, it should be done fairly, in a just manner, and honorable and dignified manner. So this is how the concept started, and slowly we realized that because we shared first and then asked the creativity, information about knowledge, innovations, and the creativity, people trusted us. And very soon, we realized when we set up Srashti in 1983, 93, and GYAN, Grassroots Innovation Augmentation Network in 97, and National Innovation Foundation in 2000. These institutions emerged in response to different gaps that we found in the ecosystem. So first step was documentation of what people have done, along with their name and identity, and the scout who discovered it. So we started publishing this newsletter, Honeybee newsletter, in which we acknowledged the person who took us to the innovator and the innovator themselves. Because if this person had not taken the trouble of going from village to village, looking for creative people and telling us, we couldn't have reached tens of thousands of villages to discover them. So surely we developed a protocol where those who take you to the source of knowledge are given equal importance as the knowledge provider himself or herself. And there were many surprises that took place on the way. We discovered that people who had much less education could innovate. And the first 3 patents that we filed in United States of America to people who had not educated beyond 10th class in mature industry like tractor, one of them. One was cotton stripper, one was a motorcycle-based plowing machine. These were filed in 98 and 2003, they were granted. Thanks to my dear friend Tom Turano, who was at that time in THT and later joined KLNG and retired from there. He did a pro bono help. So we got a lot of pro bono help from scientists, from IPR lawyers. Both these communities did not charge us at all for validation, for filing patents, and for all of that. And it was the first time somebody said that IPRs could work for the poor. Intellectual property rights system was always taken as an instrument of monopolizing the power and getting return rent for large corporations, for larger wealthy people. We said no. The only resource in which poor people are rich is their knowledge. And if we take it away by making it a prior art or making it a common knowledge, then what is left with them? So we started a debate in the IPR community that knowledge-rich economically poor people can have intellectual property in their hand. And by licensing it or through joint ventures or through entrepreneurship, it could be commercialized. So the triangle of Gyan was innovation, investment, enterprise. How to make this triangle happen? Because all the three are in different hands, different places, and transaction costs are very high, ex ante and ex post transaction cost. So hardcore economics principles had to be used to reveal the dilemma that will arise when you bring them together. And obviously, you needed a hand-holding system, which is what Honeybee Network is.
So it's amazing that when you describe the way that knowledge is created and the need to share knowledge this way, it really makes you realize how selfish most of us are in regard to taking the maximum credit for our role in a process that involves many different people. But especially people who are less well off, poor people. What is the biggest challenge to sharing their knowledge, to make that available to others and to reward them for the knowledge they've created?
The paradox is that large number of people would like to share their knowledge generously. Very few of them are aware of IPR. Very few of them ever ask it to be restricted. So the dilemma is those who are generous remain poor, and those who are stingy become rich. Now, is this the kind of world we want to live in? That's the question we should ask. Do we want to live in a world where people are generous, they care more, they share more, and they dare more? Or we want to live in a world where each unto oneself and we have to rediscover the wheel every time then we face the problem? So I must say that out of the total knowledge we may have accumulated a few 100,000 pieces of practical solutions, only a few, about 1,400 have been protected. The rest, large number of them, 100,000 are open source knowledge. The credit they get is they are acknowledged. And we have suffered a major gap, which I have not been able to solve, and maybe Richard, you will help me one day. See, we have venture capital, Stanford and UC Berkeley, and all of them are known to produce great entrepreneurs supported by venture capital. But you will be surprised to know that we don't have risk capital available for small innovations. You know, it is easier to get millions, but very difficult to get $5,000 or $2,000 or $10,000. And this is a gap that continues to exist even today in India, despite so many other programs that we have. So risk capital, both for taking your idea into prototype and from prototype to product and product to venture, a lot of gap exists at the grassroots level. For students and for others, startup schemes have come, they are going well, and country is changing because of that. But for the farmers, for the artisans, and for the mechanics, we still have very little resource that is available. So most people realize this constraint, but then their feeling is that if they have solved a problem and somebody else can benefit from it, so it be. Why should they come in the way? I will tell you about one particular case. Mansukh Jagani had a patent in US in 2003 for a motorcycle-based flying machine. Very interesting. Motorcycle's engine has RPM, revolution per minute, of 3,200. You want to use it for flying, then you have to reduce the RPM. So you have to use a larger gear in the backside to reduce it to 1,200 RPM. So torque can increase, and torque is what will pull the plow. So what happened was that we went to him, and there were some other innovators and other neighboring farmers were sitting. And we said, would you like to use your IP to prevent others from copying your design? He said, no. I said, why not? He said, because the demand is far more than I can supply. So if I restrict, then who will meet the supply? Demand of the society. So I don't mind if other people borrow my design and help the society at large, because I still will get orders for what I can do. There is no problem on that. Now, this is a very different lesson early in life that we learned that people who, even who own intellectual property, don't always want to use it to prevent others, but they can also use it as a defensive attempt, which means others cannot multiply it, that they can share it. So we have seen very novel ways in which people think about intellectual property. And this is where I would say that some of the ideas coming from grassroots can fertilize our imagination even in the corporate world. If you ask me how much of open source content is shared by any company should be the index by which you judge how socially embedded that company is, isn't it? What is the download? What is the upload to download ratio? I ask this question wherever I go. What is your upload to download ratio? What do you upload? What do you share with the world? And what do you download? You will agree, very few people have more than one upload to download ratio. But we have put enormous amount of knowledge in the open source, and I'll tell you as we go along.
So your point reminds me that the very basis for patent law in the world is that by giving monopoly rights to an inventor for a certain period of time, you're encouraging more innovation. But instead, it's used to kind of keep people from innovating a lot. So that really this whole sense of ownership of knowledge and sharing of knowledge becomes something where you create supply and demand that's restricted in order to maximize value. One of the things you were talking about is how the system works. You need to help people document, and also you need to have people who are scouting, who are looking for the people who are actually doing these innovations and helping them to share, for which they're acknowledged, and they would also share in the reward. So how does this work? How does the process work of the Honeybee Network right now?
Yeah, so we have a lot of volunteers who will go to the field and identify people who have solved a problem. We also take help of students during summer vacation. We take help of various people in the field. But I must tell you that the NGIs are more effective than NGOs. The NGIs are non-governmental individuals. The individuals contribute far more to our database than so-called NGOs or voluntary organizations. For whatever reason, maybe they are so busy with their own ideas that they don't get time to look for ideas of others, or maybe they are so focused in their work, whatever be the reason. But we get much less attention, much less contribution from so-called voluntary sector, which shouldn't be the case, but that is the way it appears to be. But a lot of people, even in professional system, teachers, students, innovators themselves sometimes share with us what other innovators have done. So this process helps us. Word of mouth is very powerful. When we go for Show the Yatra learning walk, we walk twice in a year where anybody can join. Summer, we go to hot places. And winter, we go to cold places. So our 51st walk, just last month, was in Rajasthan, Nagaur. And our 50th walk, Golden Jubilee walk, was in Kifre district, Nagaland, in northeast of India, in a cold place. So when we go in cold season to a cold place, people don't ask us to authenticate our intention. They understand the process conveys the purpose. They understand that if somebody has come walking in a summer 45, 47 degrees centigrade, they must be crazy people. They must mean what they do.
Professor, who are the people who go on the walks?
Anybody can join. There are students, there are professionals, there are PhD students, there are farmers, there are mechanics, all kinds, very mixed group. And it changes from walk to walk. And it is very interesting that sometimes even faculty members come. And we have had people sometimes from other parts of the world who walk with us, from Germany, from France, from US, from some other countries, from China, and so on. So people could join us. Everybody pays for their food. Everybody pays. We sleep on the ground. we try to reduce the distance between our level, quality of life, or level of living, and the people with whom we meet. So there is absolutely no comfort assured in these walks. And it is deliberate so that we should experience, we should immerse in the reality of our society and then be able to see how people work. For example, during the last walk in Nagaur in Rajasthan, we came across a Rampir Ka temple, a temple where both Muslim and Hindu prayed together in the same building. It was amazing. I had never seen such a thing before. And it was so inspiring, so reassuring that we have that solid kernel of solidarity in our society, embedded in real, concrete institutions, not just imaginary institutions. So there are things
And
of
there's
this.
no question it's authentic.
Yes. So this is when you come across things of this kind in today's age, when sometimes there are all kinds of tendencies, it reassures you that the basic fiber that holds this country and this world together is quite strong. It is our eye, our attention that is lacking in focusing on the sources of strength rather than focusing on weakness. So walks can be, anybody can come. The third walk that I do is with my students at IIM. And we go to Himalaya. And again, there is a concept of voluntary suffering in all the three walks. And I believe that voluntary suffering is an important concept. I'll tell you one word in Sanskrit, samvedana. Sam means equal, Vedana means pain. When you feel somebody else's pain as intensely as that person feels it, it doesn't remain that person's pain, it becomes your pain. When you try to resolve your pain through what is called as swantah sukhai, that means for your own happiness, then a real empathetic innovation emerges. Because I'm not doing a favor to somebody else. I'm solving my own problem. Now it is my own pain that I'm trying to resolve. So this empathy is for others. So it is not exact translation of samvedana. Samvedana is within. It is in me. And I'm not doing it for others. I'm doing it for myself, my own pain. So this is the spirit that guides our Shodhyatra. We learn from four teachers: teacher within, teacher among the peers, teacher in nature, and teacher among common people. These are the four teachers from whom we learn this walk. Different people learn from different teachers, different extent. That always happens. But it's a process where we share what we learned. And sometimes there are amazing instances of creativity that we come across where people solve problems very innovatively. At this time, we found a machine by a farmer, his name was Jiten, who will pick when the beans of fenugreek shatter, the seeds fall on the ground, and you don't want to lose them. So this sucks these seeds along with the soil and later clean them so that you get seeds separately and the soil separately. I mean, we had never seen such a machine before. Never seen a vacuum pressure-based sucking machine for harvesting. So this was a new concept that became. Like that, there are new heuristics, new ways in which people solve problems, some of which can solve the huge universal problem. For instance, we came across a bamboo windmill where he pumped a hand pump to irrigate his paddy field. And we wondered, yes, indeed, plants need moisture, not water. So if it takes 40 hours instead of 4 hours, that is better. Now, the concept of slow irrigation is never taught to the students of agriculture. But slow irrigation is more sustainable than fast irrigation. You use a pump set, if 12, 10, 20 horsepower, and irrigate a field in 1 hour or 2 hours, that is not the right thing to do. More leaching of nutrients will take place because you give too much water too quickly. People are not realizing it, but this person has realized it. So just like the slow food movement, can also be a slow irrigation movement. And that is something new that I learned. There are many other things that we have learned. There's no limit to, but I'm just saying that these innovations can influence the mindset in even large corporations and large public policy spaces. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, there are good things for us all to learn. Professor, how are you sharing the knowledge that you're acquiring, the things that you're learning?
So there are many databases we have. All these databases are open source. None requires registration. None ask you for your email or name. Just use it. And we also encourage people to download if they want to download it. Keep it on your personal computer, do it. We have QR codes by which people can download the whole PDF of the database also. We recently, two of my students who were, one was in Colombia, another is in a firm. Both of them, Zaigam Khan and Devika Kaushal are in New York, in that area. Now, they were my students in the class on intellectual property right. When they passed out, they were working in the company. They said, sir, we have some time on weekend. Is there a challenge you want us to address? And I said, yes. I wrote a paper in 2003, opportunity in abandoned and expired patent, but I didn't do anything. So what do we do? I said, download the abandoned patents. So they made a database, which is open source, available on gyan.org. 1 million abandoned US patents are available, open access to anybody in the world. 1 million. These patents were valid pieces of intellectual property. As you know, sometimes you don't want to maintain them, whether corporations or small entities, because either you don't find any interest in them, or you don't find any inquiry for them, or you can't afford to maintain them, whatever is the reason, they become open source. They're all available, easy to find and easy to search for any scholar, any entrepreneur who wants to use them for their work, of course, with acknowledgement, but you don't have to pay anything to anyone. So all these databases are open source. We have techpedia.in, which has 200,000 information of 200,000 engineering projects done by 550 to 600,000 students of India, engineering students of India. How the mind works, if you want to know what are the problems they're thinking about. Here, you know, all disciplines of engineering, because we give awards and this is the baseline. So all our databases, probably we contribute more in open source than anybody else when it comes to knowledge systems from a small bottom-up system that we have.
I'm also curious about how, how distinctly do you think this is fitting in with Indian culture? So everybody who's worked with India for a while has heard the word jugaad, working out a solution for the time being. And do you think that what you're doing in India is repeatable in other cultures?
It is repeatable, but I'm happy that you didn't use the word that you were going to use. The makeshift solutions that India has become famous for, I don't like them.
Please comment.
I don't like jugaad. I don't like, because that is a way to get around the problem.
Okay.
This is not the way to get to the root of the problem and eliminate it. So I believe that the innovations which strike at the root of inertia, which prevent them from happening again, so that you don't have to work around them, that is what we need. Unfortunately, a lot of people characterize Indian way of solving problem as a makeshift problem. That is there. Some people do that. I don't deny that. But that is not the typical way in which our culture has evolved to solve.
And that's not the knowledge you're talking about.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about systematic designs which are replicable and repeatable and can be replicated by anybody else. And we have seen many examples of that. So yes, any country which would like to borrow. I was just reading yesterday a budget speech of South African finance minister on 23rd of July, where the minister has announced a special allocation for grassroots innovation. And I tweeted it immediately. I said, I'm so happy. Malaysia does it. Philippines started a program inspired by our work called as GRIND, Grassroots Innovation for Inclusive Development, GRIND, G-R-I-N-D. So many countries are learning from it. Sometimes they are improving upon it. And it is something that is easily replicable. So you scout, you document, you validate, you value add, you protect IPR if necessary, and you do business development and macro venture fund risk capital, and you disseminate. these are the steps which we recognize are very fundamental. We didn't have a template to borrow, as you can imagine, because no country had an innovation ecosystem of like that. But now it is so easy to replicate, because these are the steps anybody will have to go through. And I have gone to Zuni tribe, I have gone to Tonawdam, I have seen many indigenous American people, and I have studied even their creativity. And I would say that any society, every society has the kernel. You know, there was a book written in US called as Fortune in Formula for farms and farms. Fortune in Formula for Farms and Farms. I have 1936 or 41 edition of this book, published for many years. And what I'm trying to show is that there were people like this in any part of the world. In the US also, there were people who were collecting this kind of knowledge, though they were not mentioning the name of the provider. So for example, there was a practice in which people found out the soap made of fat of different kind of fishes used for controlling different pests. Now, soap solution is well known in our community also. Many farmers use soap solution. But it was also tried there, and they had distinguished the soap made of fat of different fishes for different pests. What a great amount of research it is. And how sustainable it is. So I would say that the kernel of such inquiry is not unique to us. It has existed in, you know, there are 7 volumes of Foxfire series, books. You might have heard about them.
I come from the American South, so I know the Foxfire.
You know Foxfire now. Now you look at that. Tell me what were they doing? They were going from place to place, telling people about architecture, telling about carpentry, telling about things, isn't it? That was a great movement. And I would say that this is the spirit. We should try to own this idea. Forget about Honeybee Network, forget about Anil Gupta, forget about our institutions, Gyan, etc. I would say take it as your own. Every society has that germ where some people at some stage tried to pull together the knowledge from people and share it openly with other people. That was wonderful, isn't it? Just such a nice way of doing it. Unfortunately, it stopped for a while, after a while, but it was a great idea. George Washington Carver used to go on Carva on horse carriages, carrying books and giving it to the laborers in the farm to read. And he, has the patents on peanut butter, which he never prevented others from copying. He could have become a very rich man. He opened it all. He's the father of peanut butter, isn't it? So many inventions he had, but he preferred to teach in a community college rather than in an elite university. Those are the traditions where people have given their life to serve working class or to serve people at the bottom level. And I'm proud and I'm privileged that I know about some of these things through friends who have shared with me.
So this is kind of a tension on the one hand between typical business principles and these deeper social and kind of macroeconomic principles, where you really need to provide good to all people and you really need to have impact, as we are used to thinking about social impact. But business is often about knowledge arbitrage. If you know something that other people don't know, you can make money from them. And I'm curious, how do you talk to the business people to help them to see a different way than is usual? Because most of the venture capitalists I know are not very happy to think about investing in a company that doesn't have exclusive control over its intellectual property.
Now, let me reveal a secret. Amit, you will be interested in that. The most companies which invite me for a paid lecture are the large multinational corporations, not Indian companies. Rarely, if ever, an Indian company would invite me. It is largely the large Barclays Bank, for example. Why would they invite me? Because I talked to them that they are 60% of high net worth individuals in India have account in Barclays Bank. And I said, If you can guide them to use 1% or 2% of their wealth for a larger social purpose, you will become a change agent of society, not just accumulating wealth of these rich people. But so they want to hear this, maybe. Maybe. Why would HP or Cisco or large number of other companies like to listen to the possibility that they can think of new ways? I'll give you an example. I was showing an example of Meghalaya, where you have a cooking stove, chula, a wood stove. Then you have one shelf, second shelf, third shelf, and a seed box on the top. Now, as the smoke goes from the cooking stove, it has high temperature, then less, then less, then less. So the temperature gradient has been used for functional purposes. Each shelf, first shelf is for curing wood, second is for drying wood because it is in Meghalaya, Cherrapunji, the region of maximum rainfall in the world. Third is for drying cheese or meat for shelf life. Fourth is where the seeds are saved from the pest. Now, I told HP, you have got servers which produce heat. Why don't you use this heat to cool the servers by heat exchanger? Now, this thought disrupts the process because the server farms today, as we are using AI and as the Google is spreading, you know how much of 4 times increase has taken place in the energy consumption after AI came in the last 5 4 times increase. Because people are trying to ask questions even if they didn't need the answer, but they just want to try it and explore. And imagine 6-7 billion people try to explore that. It's huge energy bill, but they are not using the waste heat for a functional purpose as this community does in a small hut. That's what I'm trying to say, that the large corporations can learn from these creative people about frugal ways of solving problem, about sustainable ways of solving problem. And in the process, if they save their cost, increase their margin, I would wish they will invest in the ecosystem and create public goods. Solutions that a corporation has developed, which it should share with other peers. I mean, I'm told the Silicon Valley emerged because the coders in the evening will meet and help solve each other's problem without taking into account which company who was working. Now, this was the true spirit of Silicon Valley, which never get talked about. It was the spirit of open sharing of one's skills and knowledge with another person who needs that problem, even if their companies are competing. They don't care about that. They didn't care. Am I right, Richard?
Actually, that's very perceptive. And one of the strengths of Silicon Valley that people don't talk about much is that despite the very severe American legal system where people are sued for, taking knowledge they shouldn't, people in Silicon Valley talk very actively with people in other companies, with people in other sectors like the university, and they know how much they can talk about. To share the knowledge in an appropriate way is one of the real, in order to find something new, is one of the kind of, I think.
But it seems that lower down you are,
culture.
the more sharing you do.
Yeah.
So coders, when they meet, they don't care about whether there are boundaries about what they would share. They find that this patch will solve your problem. Go and get your bug removed by using this patch. Thus, they will tell you right away. And I think some of the largest contributors to open source software movement are also from there. So this is a paradox. This is the paradox that the valley, which produces the largest, richest people in the business, also produces very large content of open software. And I think this is something we have not looked at, this paradox. But this is not a paradox. This is the reality of life. I want to feel good about myself. I want to feel happy. At the end of the day, I want to feel that I have done something useful for this world, which has given me air, water, and everything else. And this is one way in people feel meaningful about their life. So it is something what is called as cognitive surplus. I mean, many people have not used their cognitive surplus efficiently enough, but there's huge scope of that. So I think I have no quarrel with accumulation of money, so long as it is used in a manner that society becomes more fair caring, sharing, and daring is what is the essence of life. And that must spread.
You've hit the core of the course that Amit and I teach together that we call rebalancing economic systems. Because indeed, how you use the wealth that's created is absolutely critical. Before I turn the mic over to Amit, I've got one more question.
Please.
So you mentioned AI, and I'm curious what effect you think AI will have in this general kind of really the universal nature of innovation that you've been talking about.
First, the positive side. The positive side is that the free AI tools confuse many times the details of a phenomena and mix up unrelated things or provide summaries which are textbookish, where there is no insight. And this habit of young minds to take that as the gospel, take that as the genuine phenomena, will curb the creativity, unfortunately, though it will make the task easier to find a lot of content in a very short time. They can get summarized, they can review. That is the positive side. But negative side is that it will also make them struggle less and try to tweak the idea more laboriously, more paradoxically, more dialectically. So therefore, at this moment, its effect on learning system isn't very great, very positive. It is taking away the habit of reading the full articles. It's taking away the habit of reading the classics. It is taking away the habit of making notes. I mean, that is not good. I like people who read a lot, write a lot, and then rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it 4 times, 5 times, 10 times. One of my students' paper was revised 16 times. Because all ideas you don't get at one time to give comments. But this is making a shortcut to learning. I don't know. At the same time, AI in the field of diagnostics, in the field of interpretation of large data can be very meaningful because it can, we have only some 8 to 10,000 radiologists in our country. So if somebody in a tier 3 city has to read an X-ray without training of X-ray, they would need an AI tool. Or they would need an AI tool which will convert 2D into 3D because they don't have MRI machine. So in terms of health, it can have remarkable impact on democratizing the diagnostics and maybe treatment. In agriculture also, in helping in interpreting the diseases and pests and variabilities of them, it can be very powerful. Wherever we have large authentic data, interpretation of that data and finding patterns, I think AI can do greatly. But when it comes to thinking about a problem and finding a unique solution, it is a very poor tool.
Thank you. That's something profound to think about. Amit, let me turn the floor over to you for a minute.
Sure. Professor Gupta, you make a very important point on AI and learning. So my question is much more very grounded in the Indian context, and that is, like foundational learning has been one of the biggest challenges that India faces, right? Can we use AI to solve problems like foundational learning, numeracy, because the outcomes at the school level seems to be very challenged right now, as we see from the data.
Tell me, when you were in school, how did you learn to multiply? You learned tables?
Of course.
Today, do you find any young person telling you the tables?
That is exactly the problem.
So the point is that the foundational learning in ability to multiply in the mind, add in the mind, subtract in the mind, that's what we were good at, isn't it? But today, children are not good at that. Why they're not good at that? Because they're not exerting their mind. They're exerting their tool, their calculator, their laptop. So I think the AI tool should be banned in the primary school. AI tools should not be available. We should work with paper and pencil or slate and writing instrument. And no tool, no mechanics, so that my brain gets developed to process information, I create categories in my mind to sort information. I truly, and I mean, how do we learn languages? That is a lesson. Can AI teach me language? No, it can translate, all right. But it cannot give me the etymological root of the word unless I try to struggle hard and find it out. So I think foundational knowledge should be done the conventional way, in which you practice, you multiply, write, divide, whatever you do. You write essay and not copy it from somewhere. I have suffered a great deal in my life because I never copied essay. And my teacher said, please copy it. That is the way to get marks. And I got very poor marks in English. And I lost my division in 11th class years ago because I didn't want to write something which has been written by somebody else. So I learned to write originally, but I did not get marks for that. So I would say foundational knowledge requires trade-off between learning to think, learning to imagine, learning to relate to the larger nature and society. This cannot be substituted by machines and tools. No, never. I don't believe in it. But it can help you to look at, let's say, large amount of equations are there. You want to solve them faster. All right. But, you know, so I'm a student of biology, biochemical genetics. One cycle, Krebs cycle, used to take the whole board. And, you know, but that's the way you learn how ATP goes to ADH, and how adenosine diphosphate becomes adenosine triphosphate. Energy exchange takes place at different sequences. How do you know that fundamentals? So there is a merit in learning to derive certain solutions, learning to derive certain equations, learning to derive certain results step by step. You know, our teachers used to give marks for steps, right steps or wrong steps. But today, in the age of answers, right answer, wrong answer, we have forgotten about the steps. And that means people will cut corners. You will not mind process, cutting corners and cutting short the process. Quality control requires process documentation, the conventional way of doing quality control. You know, today we are not interested in that. So we are taking a big risk in generating, in trailing. I mean, I'm all for AI applications that save drudgery and generate choices and make more accurate decision, precision in our agriculture, precision in our health, precision in our measurement. By all means, use those tools, but not at the foundational level, as you're saying. At the later stage, when you have learned the art, now you can apply.
Well, this is fascinating. And just following up on this, on the whole idea of innovation ecosystem that exists within India, one of the biggest challenges, and since you've worked in this, and I'm wanting to talk about a challenge, that most of the budget that is getting into innovation is coming from either the government. There are those small enterprises who are possibly trying to do something, but there is not this huge, large chunk of R&D budget coming from enterprises. How do we change that trajectory? Because that could drive a lot of innovations, because possibly what you're talking about within your thing, Honeybee network and the innovation you're capturing, the idea is to even scale up on those ideas. So how do we really move into that next realm of making a difference to the lives of people?
You're absolutely right that much of the funding, much meaning 99%, 95% of the funding today in the innovation space, the startup phase is coming from public sector, from government and public agencies. Only when the enterprises grow to a stage and start making profit that the venture capitalist enters. By that time, 90% enterprises have died. They were suffocated. Good ideas got buried, not because they were not smart enough, but they did not get sufficient capital, breathing space to sustain for some more time and then survive. They couldn't survive. Those who survived, as you can see, many of them are copycats, very few original. A student in my class became unicorn in 2021. In 2012, he presented a project in my class of creativity, innovation, knowledge, network, and entrepreneurship called as online pharmacy. That was not possible legally in this country. But I gave him a place for thinking about something for which laws have to be changed, for which public policy has to be changed, for which the entire system has to be changed. And he got it changed. Siddharth Shah and his colleagues, MedLife and PharmEasy, became the first unicorn. The rest, everybody, Tatas have copied him. Other people have followed him, but he's the leader. from a classroom project. So it is possible that our students can conceive of ideas which are much ahead of the time, 2012, and achieve results. But for that, we need patience. As people call it in jargon, patient capital. There is patient capital. People talk about impact capital. Where is impact capital if it also wants return in 3 years or 4 years? That's not impact capital. It is a simple venture capital with little bit of social purpose thrown around here and there. So I think we need real risk capital. We need real grant money for prototyping. You can't expect a person to do R&D from borrowed capital. That's not fair. That doesn't work actually. So I think the answer lies in our our CSR funds actually. I was a member of the high-level committee of CSR, which made funding of innovation in a startup possible within the CSR. But that funding must increase now. It is very small part of it goes to the innovation. Can we increase that? And I'm sure with Richard and you together, if you think of a meeting only on this subject, as to how can large corporations enrich the ecosystem of our innovation at all levels, in all domains, I think it can happen. You look at public procurement, how many innovations by startups have gone into public procurement? How many primary health centers have this size of ECG machine, which we have given award for? Or Dr. Anjali Mashelkar award was given for ECG machine to Neha and Rahul Rastogi. Just a credit card size machine. It gives you 12 lead ECG. And it should be available in every primary health center. It's not. So I think not only that we don't fund it, we don't procure it either. That's another problem. So our systems, the quality of our services continues to suffer despite solutions which can democratize access to high technology solutions at the grassroots level being available. So there is a gap.
If I can comment briefly on this, not only is the sort of absence of lack of capital an issue there, but I think that there's something about inventors who sometimes want to be comfortably in control of what's happening.
Yes, you are right.
I've known people who invented medical devices that could have benefited millions of people, but they were quite happy being in charge of a medium-sized company that would only reach hundreds of thousands of people.
I completely agree with you
that is an issue.
There is a control freak mind in many inventors. I agree with you. But apart from
the
that,
issue
I think
is to get out of your comfort, to
correct.
feel the pain of the others.
No, I agree with you. Control and ability to have your say in all matters, not delegating and not distributing the supply chain. These are problems. But I couldn't tell you from the grassroots perspective some other problem. For example, testing facilities, calibration facilities, certification facilities, which are very important for certain higher level of investments to come, are also not easily available. We were very lucky that all the scientists whom I would request for validating the claims of farmers or artisans or mechanics did so without charging. I mean, their time was given pro bono. All lawyers who filed patent didn't charge me for that, except the fees part, which is very small. So we could get in US and in India patents at a price which nobody could imagine. If I convert into money, there were billions of dollars worth of money that they contributed. So I think while this has happened from the lawyer community and scientist community, it has not happened from the R&D workshops of the large corporations. They have not given their facilities to the startups and other people. I mean, this is an issue we need to flag because a large number of companies have very good calibration and measurement institute R&D platforms. Not hardcore R&D, but R&D to maintain quality, R&D to maintain consistency and integrity of their system, which they have brought together in a car or whatever. They can, if they wish to, provide their test bed for startups also. They are not doing that. I remember once we used a very famous washing machine. They had a room where they could create the disturbances on Indian roads, you know. So the platform was such that it will wobble and then they will put a rain on it. So all that they could simulate the situations on the Indian roads. And we were wondering, well, this was the state of art. in Goa. But that could be made available to the startups who are working in that space. It will make their life easier. So we need to make more, I would not say completely open access, but maybe privileged access for the inventors who are doing something meaningful for life. And you could take maybe a small equity if you wish for all that. But if you do it generously, nothing like that. We need to create more such facilities.
So, but when you're saying generosity, that would be a mindset issue, and that huge mindset will have to be changed. And how will you drive that change, where people start believing in it?
At the heart, I think, I mean, the first bread that was cooked in our homes was never eaten.
Yes.
It was given for birds, dogs, cows, whosoever, correct?
We do that even today.
So there are long traditions in our society, and maybe many other societies, where nature and other people were considered part of our extended responsibility system. Over a period of time, we have forgotten those. So I'm not saying we need to invent new norms, but we need to recalibrate our current norms to be able to relate to those traditions which connected to these people. I see in the morning, during my morning walk, I see people eating ants, feeding ants with the flour, So there are people in our country who care about ants, who care about birds, who care about stray dogs. And I see people who bring milk pouch and put in a can and give it to the dogs on the street. So there are people. So I think maybe I see them more often than others, but they're there. Such people are there. So we need to begin with what exists. I always believe that past perfect to future indefinite. What has happened must lead us to what may happen in future. So I think we should build upon the available routes of sharing and caring, and then teach the people to dare. That's what this real spur of socially meaningful entrepreneurship will be, where every entrepreneur would then consider mentoring 10 other entrepreneurs. And then the chain reaction starts. It happened in many societies. In our society, it is beginning to happen. Maybe someday it will happen more often than. But that is required. We really need to make interdependent. Nature is interdependent. And nature is very original also. So we need to bring that somewhere.
And as we are coming to the close of the conversation, one final question from my side, and that would be, what message would you like to send across to, say, the leaders of the new generation leaders that exist or are coming through? Or possibly
My first suggestion is change your download to upload ratio. Share more than what you consume, the knowledge or whatever. Number one. Number two, enjoy the job. I mean, learn to relish the spirit of solving problems by sharing. Try to do that, and then you see how happy you feel. And that happiness is not possible to get from any other source. So learn to be happy by sharing and joining hands with others who are struggling with a problem that you may have solved or you may know how to solve. So that is second. And third, I would say is, no matter how small, but nurture and invest in some idea that you like, wherever you are. But it may be a child, it may be a grown-up person, it could be anybody. If you're an engineer and you have time a little bit, convert an idea of a child into a prototype and gift it to that child. Look, what you said was possible. For instance, Kulsum Rizvi from Lucknow, class 5, Tarun Anand, class 10 from Hardoi, gave an idea that when you sit before the computer, unlike today when I'm carefully putting my back on the chair, we lean forward many times. We don't rest our back properly. So the idea was that the computer will scan your posture, and if you're not doing properly, screen go blank, and a message will come, sit properly, I will not let you do work. Now that's great. Or there will be pressure sensors on the back. If all the 5 pressure sensors are not being pressed, the chair will start singing and not let you do work. Great thing, we all need it. I have had back pain, lower back pain many times in my last 20 years. Every third year I used to have pain and have to lie on the bed for 10 days. But these kids have thought about a solution. I couldn't convert it into product as yet. But I would like, if somebody is listening to this program and they have skill in the sensor and actuation business, please help develop such ideas into prototypes and products so that our children can have confidence that it matters to think originally and imagine. Somebody will convert your imagination to reality. That confidence we should give to our children. The world will change forever if we could do that. Because young generation will start realizing in this world, it helps to imagine. If somebody converts their imagination into real solutions. What a great word it would be. Today, they don't have that confidence. A girl sent us an idea that when a pregnant woman, this year we gave her award, Samantre from Orissa, Bhubaneswar. If you board a bus, a pregnant woman boards a bus, message should go immediately to conductor and driver. Drive slowly. Don't apply brake immediately. You know, because there's a lady with a... No, how nice it is. It is a universally applicable solution. Not just for India. Not just for Bhubaneswar. So I'm saying our children are able to imagine very basic solutions to the problem that they see around. Our ability to generalize them, to scale them up, to convert them into best policies and products is lacking. And I hope that somebody or many people, maybe among the viewers, will write back to you and say, well, we are here. Okay, let's get it going. And if I get even 10 such volunteers for Honeybee Network and for Indian dialogue conversation together, I would think this evening to be wonderfully well spent because we have moved forward. And I wish we moved forward.
Well, thank you. This has just been such a fascinating and inspiring interaction, Professor Gupta. And as I must say that there is a reason that you're my guru and you're somebody who inspires me all the time. That's what it is. But Richard, if you have to say anything towards the close.
Just very briefly, I want to thank you for an inspiring message when it's so easy to be negative and so easy to say that the world is going in a bad direction, and to remind us that everyone can play a part in making the future a better place. Thank you very much, Professor Gupta.
God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Gupta, and I'll be in touch. Thank you.